اللي شايل همها صوتها وروحها ودمها ادانا حرية وأمل وحياة نعيشها. بلدي اللي وقت الشدة دايما في النهاية بتنتصر واللي محدش جمع.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Starting off our discussion with His Excellency Ambassador Miligy. Sir, now, before we start talking about the foreign affairs file and the hopes and aspirations and the plans for the future, for at least the next tenure, now let's take an overview over the past 10 years. What were the main characteristics that really identify Egypt's foreign affairs strategies and file?
Well, I think that it's very important to focus that the most important file that His Excellency the President was really interested in was the most vulnerable social class in Egypt. And by this I mean the one who really are in dire strait and that they really have been neglected for such a long time. And it's not just about the social class as much as its needs. So they need industries, they need work, they need better understanding to their problems. And I think this was the first mission that the President have tackled in the first 10 years. We should not, of course, forget many initiatives. Maybe the most renowned one is the one of the decent life. For the Egyptians who were really in need for respect. Don't forget that this was the slogan of the President, that these people did not find someone to take care of, and this is his mission to do so. And I think based on just this sentence, he was elected the first time. Of course, things have evolved and have developed, and the situation is much more complicated now in view of the international circumstances around us, in view of the regional situation, in view of even the internal wars that we had to go, especially in the field of security and northern Sinai and all this. So I mean, the problems that we faced and the challenges that we had to face were astronomous. However, the President in 10 years to change, actually, and I mean to change the face of Egypt. Of course, he tackled the infrastructure, which was in a very bad situation. We all remember how our roads were, how our electricity was, how our water resources, and everything that any regular person would need to deal with. And this was among the first tasks of the President. So I think the most important thing that he was focused on is the Egyptians, and especially the most vulnerable one. I think this is where we have to start today when we are trying to analyze the last 10 years.
Well, you've mentioned some of the main focuses over the past 10 years, and also the foreign affairs file. There were many different equations that Egypt needed to modify, especially after 2011. Egypt's position globally, politically and economically as well, was really shaken, was not how the whole world used to see Egypt, and in a way, we needed to rebuild or restructure our position globally, which we have achieved so far. But one of the files that Egypt dealt with, or had to deal with, since 2011 actually, was the Nile Waters file and the Ethiopian Renaissance Dam. And this was one of the gateways for the President to really work on enhancing the Egyptian-African relations, really needed to strengthen and revitalize the political and foreign relations with the rest of the African states. How would you rate these efforts so far, and where should we go from here?
Well, unfortunately, it's very hard when you are trying to deal with a file in respect with the international law, while your adversary is not abiding by it. It's not a fair game, to be honest. I mean, Egypt have, from day one, have said that war was not an option, and actually you've seen that the situation, no matter how hard it evolved, but President Sisi kept his calm, and that we are going to maintain the relations and maintain the negotiations up to the last round of negotiations, and we are not going to resort to any violent mean to resolve the situation. However, we need to all understand that we should respect the international law. Unfortunately, our adversary, Ethiopia in this case, do not abide by the same rules. We've seen them once after once and time after time. They are always dealing with the status quo, that they're going to do the situation and then let you think whatever you want to think. But we did not just do that. I mean, we went to our negotiations. We had a plan based on international law, and we presented this to the international organizations, and we have presented our case in how that, in order to, as a country that that uses the water Nile, needed its a portion of
Yes.
this water, and this is plain international law. And so far we didn't suffer, but we don't know about tomorrow. However, although we mentioned that we are not going to resort to any wars or any violent actions, but I think that we have mentioned also that the lives of Egyptians is not a matter of negotiations.
Yes.
So that would definitely mean that the door is open for any action that we would take in order to secure the life of now 115 million Egyptians, that they depend by 96 or 97% on the River Nile.
Yes.
And accordingly, this is not a joke for us. We are also trying to deal with the situation in a very pragmatic way. We have stopped cultivating many plantations that needs a lot of water resources, such as rice, for instance.
Yes.
We have cut down the cultivation of rice to a very low limit. Also, we are trying to see the possibility of desalination, the maximum quantity of water possible, and we are trying to see how can we do our irrigation by using this kind of water or recycled water. So we are doing what we can do to make the best use out of the water that is given to us. But at a certain limit, if the Ethiopian will continue with their projects, which actually we are not against, we have to understand that the idea of Egypt wanting the water, and this is the propaganda of Ethiopia regarding this file, that Egypt is still dealing with Ethiopia as if it is a colonial force. It is not the case. We have mentioned from day one that we totally understand the concerns of Ethiopia regarding their development and regarding their needs for electricity and other means and resources in order to develop their country. We totally respect that, and we even offered to help them. The idea of that Egypt wants the water for itself, regardless of other countries, this is not the reality that Ethiopians are trying to promulgate. The idea is that we want our fair ratio of this water that is entitled to us by the international law. And in order to do so, we want to direct honest negotiations with goodwill in order to reach an agreement that is going to be binding for all countries involved, including Sudan.
Yes.
And there is nothing wrong with what we said. The problem is that when you have a partner who doesn't want to abide by the regular international law and want to impose his point of view on the negotiation. I can say that we 100% succeeded. Actually, we did not. But that doesn't mean that we totally failed. The pressure is mounting, and Egypt is not going to let go, because we are talking about the life of our citizen. So the floor has to stay open until we reach an agreement. And this is what we are trying to do with our persistence, with the help of international organizations and many active players on the international arena, such as the powerful countries of the EU and the United States and other countries who can help with these issues. We, of course, the situation has been a little bit retreated because of the situation in Gaza, which is very eminent at the time being, but I'm sure that we will have to sit again with our Ethiopian neighbors and negotiate the best deal possible for both of us to achieve our goals and our development needs that we both are looking for.
Yes. Your Excellency, now you've alluded to the difficulties and the different circumstances that Egypt's foreign affairs file had to deal with over the past 10 years. And some of these issues were a conflict in Libya, our western neighbor, a conflict taking place in Sudan, our southern neighbor, and quite recently as well, our eastern neighbors, what's taking place in Gaza. Now, we've already worked in securing our North Sinai with a war on terror, dealing with our western neighbors and dealing with Daesh, dealing with an uprising in Sudan. How successful do you feel that we were, and what are we expecting from these conflicts that are surrounding Egypt for the future?
Honestly, very much. I mean, I feel that we really nailed it. To that point, I can say this. I mean, I don't think that any country in the world can survive what Egypt has survived the last 10 years, looking at our neighbors, our direct neighbors, and how the situation is. I mean, if we take the Mediterranean as an exception, all our other borders are suffering from either a civil war or a very hard political situation or economical situation, and even genocide. And all this is right on our borders, right, exactly, the other side of our borders, exactly. So I don't want to jinx it, but I don't think that any country could have survived what we survived this. Yes, we have difficulties, and these regional problems are having a very severe impact on us. But we are still here, we are still fighting what we think is wrong, and we are still trying to develop our country. I'm sure that we've all seen the recent development in the situation after everybody have thought that Egypt is going down the drain, and that we are going to declare our bankruptcy and so on. And we made this deal that convinced many international monetary institutions that Egypt is on the right track and we can do it. And that's why even we have a flow of hard currency that is coming towards Egypt on one side. We are continuing our economic reforms, and we have a new administrative capital that actually, I mean, this maybe wasn't the subject, but actually, when I saw the sworn-in a couple of days ago, and I saw how the new administrative capital looks like, I felt very proud. I felt proud before being a political analyst or being a diplomat or ambassador. As a just simple Egyptian, I felt so proud that we have accomplished this and we are still here. Yes, we faced some difficulties, but because the infrastructure was in a very bad situation, it's not a secret. I mean, we all remember how it was and how it is right now. We have to give the credit, even if we are dissatisfied with other things. Nothing can be done in one day, but we are doing what we can. The government is doing what it can. We had some problems, yes, we admit it, but we are advancing. We are on the right track. And we have to understand that if we were not on the right track, whether we're talking about the Americans or the Europeans individually and collectively as the EU, would not have come here on our doorstep to tell us that we want to help and we want to be part of your future success. This shows that there is confidence that Egypt can turn the situation around, and that's what we did. We have to, as we have criticized before, we have to give ourselves the credit of what we have accomplished. We have done a great deal. Our country is something that we could be proud of. You remember the slums area and how it looks like. We remember how Egyptians were living in neighborhoods that are not are not really worthy of human beings. Now we have new areas. I mean, any other president than our current president would have think about major project just to get money. But the first projects were just to move those people from the slums where they were living to better areas with gardens, with facilities, with better environment, and with decent decent flats. I mean, this costs any government money.
Yes, definitely.
If the idea was just to get money, it would have been much easier if we neglect these projects and just go and to switch the country into an industrialized country. And we had an experience with this after the revolution of 1952, that we wanted to produce everything, as we said, from the needle all the way to the rockets, and we didn't build neither. This time we are dealing with the situation as it is. We have to help those people to have a decent life. And from here came the initiative of the president, A Decent Life, because those people need a decent living in order to feel how human they are.
Yes.
And those people, once they feel this, they will give what they didn't give so far because of their rejection of any effort from the government. I think that the situation is getting better. I'm not saying we are at the top where we should be, but we are on the right direction, and we have to be a little bit more patient. But the results are here already, and it's not just me talking. The whole international community is talking about what we have accomplished, and that's why they want to be part of our future. They wouldn't have come if they still think that we are losers. They wouldn't have been here. So the idea of the whole world coming, the EU coming, and we've seen how they came. They didn't just send someone. I mean, the head of the European Commission was here. Several heads of states were here. And they were talking with Egypt as a grand nation about our needs, our demands, and what do you want to do in the future, and we are going to help you to do that, to accomplish that. Of course, they have their own agenda, of course, related to immigration and so forth. But nevertheless, they could have asked for the agenda with a lower price than what they are offering. What they are offering shows that they have confidence, that they know that their money is going to be returned with a profit. And that's why they're here with us.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, Egypt has definitely invested in many presidential initiatives, as His Excellency has mentioned, also invested in the human capital, the most valuable asset for Egypt, and as well investing in the foreign affairs fund. Let's check out this report and we'll be right back.
Egypt's relations with the outside world seek to maintain strong bilateral and multilateral cooperation, which is an essential goal of Egypt's general policy. Strengthening traditional friendly relations as well as building new foreign relations enables Egypt to exercise influence and pursue its national interests all over the globe. Traditional relations such as those with African and Arab countries are maintained primarily through interaction within regional organizations such as the African Union and the Arab League. Bilateral relations with Arab and African countries are also promoted through continuous consultations, widening the scope of cooperation in various fields and exchanging expertise in different areas of development. Egypt has played and still plays a leading role in supporting Arab policies, foremost among which are the concerning issues such as the Arab-Israeli conflict, Iraq and Sudan. Egypt's foreign policy is also committed to boosting the state's strategic relations, such as those with the US, Europe, Asia, and the Far East, which help Egypt in its sustainable development efforts and promotes its role in the international arenas, as well as serving its strategic regional objectives. On a bilateral level, Egypt has active relations with most European countries, including those of the Mediterranean. What enables Egypt to keep promoting its foreign relations has been its steadfast insistence on the principles of mutual respect and equality in all its foreign dealings, and its staunch opposition to outside meddling in other countries' domestic affairs and attempts to infringe on their sovereignty and independence. Egypt is also a strong advocate of peace and stability in its regional environment, towards which end it promotes a spirit of cooperation, the adherence to the principles of international law, the commitment of international treaties and covenants, and supports for the UN organizations and international cooperation and mutual support.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Continuing our discussion with His Excellency Ambassador Miligy. Sir, now, if we're talking about, I mean, we spoke about the main challenges that we face domestically, the foreign challenges regionally, and if we are looking at the future of the foreign affairs file now, first topic on the agenda is the conflict in Gaza. Now, you've highlighted the visits that the President is receiving almost on a daily basis, be it from leaders of European countries, the head of the European Commission, the UN Secretary General, head of the UNHCR. I mean, all leaders from all sorts, high-level delegations from the Congress, Anthony Blinken, I mean, what have you. So, what are we supposed to be prepping ourselves in terms of our foreign affairs file, focusing mainly on the first issue in hand, which is the conflict in Gaza? What should be our preparations for any given scenario that might take place over the coming maybe days, weeks, or months?
Well, it is not the conflict itself that is bothering me, and actually shouldn't bother any analyst. The idea of the liquidation of the Palestinian cause is the strategic word that has to be used. This is what worries me, is the Israeli vision of even new settlements now in Gaza, that the Palestinians who have been kicked out of northern and middle of Gaza will not be able to return to their homes. So even Gaza has been shrinked from Gaza to just the small enclave of Rafah, or maybe a few kilometers more. This is the Israeli vision. We've heard rumors, and I hope that they are wrong, about building a new port that will help to evacuate the Palestinians to other and new lands. The idea of Egypt have failed to transfer forcibly the Palestinians to Egypt, to Sinai and then to all of Egypt. Both ideas have failed. So the idea is that to make the situation unbearable for the Palestinians, so that would voluntarily, and I mean this between inverted commas, because there is no voluntarily about leaving your own land, about voluntarily leaving the Gaza Strip to go to other countries that have offered and said, I don't want to name names because so far nothing is clear or concrete or official from many countries, but we've heard reports about several countries, Europeans and Americans, that said that we are ready to take few Palestinians, especially those who are in a very bad situation or wounded or whatever. But the idea is here. And my fear, and I think Egypt's fear, is the liquidation of the Palestinian cause by seizing the opportunity of what happened the 7th of October to change demographically the situation in Gaza and geographically by seizing more Palestinian land to annex it to Israel. Unfortunately, I mean, the whole world is talking about two things: that there was attack on Israeli civilians the 7th of October, and actually I do not really understand the term of civilians. We all know that all Israelis are part of the IDF until the age of 55, and even more sometimes. So which civilians you mean? That's the first question that occurred to my mind. You have to be clear. And second, where is this Israeli land that Palestinians have conquered? Where is it exactly? How do you know that this is Israeli land? Israel is the only country maybe in the world that so far have not given the whole world the exact dimension of the country. Where are the Israeli borders exactly, so that Palestinians would have to respect those boundaries and not to cross them. Even Israel itself did not recognize any frontiers, any boundaries. And accordingly, you cannot just claim it the way you want it and whenever you want it. Give us your land so we would know what isn't the land of the Palestinian, and accordingly, we can convince the Palestinian not to do so. Second, the second narrative that we're talking about, that the Palestinians are doing what is known as a resistance movement. And this resistance movement is due to the presence of an occupation. Did Israel at any point said that it is really willing to discuss the issue with goodwill with the Palestinians to reach an agreement about a two-state solution? Never happened. Even when they said that they were very close to reach an agreement, this was never true. This was a pure lie. You remember at the time of President Arafat, this never happened. And what happened is that they offered him the best deal they could offer. And this do not concern the refugees who are living outside of the Palestinian or the Israeli territories, who don't have the right until today to get back to their land. This does not include Jerusalem. This does not include the future of the settlements, and it's just to recognize the status quo on the ground. And this was not fair to say that we offered the deal and the Palestinians have rejected it. So at the end of the day, we have a situation that is really a hard one. And to add to it, currently now we have so many mixed messages that we are receiving from the West in general and from the United States precisely. I mean, the United States help and actually it has its objections about the Security Council resolution and said that they would not accept this word, and you have to change the wording from permanent to lasting, and so many things that we heard about the resolution 2728. And at the end, when they finally reached an agreement and the resolution appeared with the blessing of the United States, who abstained from voting against, and at the same session, the United States comes and says it's a non-binding resolution, which is totally against the international law. In another violation from the United States, the major supporter of Israel, that Israel, you should not listen to what we say here. As a matter of fact, I want to add to this something. The West in general have wasted our time in many initiatives and many negotiations and many talks and resolutions that none of them were actually either vetoed against or not even implemented, if even they appeared. Ramadan is in few days ending, and Israel so far did not stop its aggression, although the resolution 2728, which is the last resolution that we have it in our hands, it's just like someone getting a court order and he cannot implement it. As simple as that. This is the situation that we are facing right now. And they have drowned us in all these papers and talks and everything, while giving Israel the opportunity to continue its aggression against the Palestinian people, while crying for them at the same time. For the love of God, what is the message you're giving us here in general? We do not understand. I mean, the United States and I believe several other European countries, at the same time that they are asking Israel to respect international law and to stop its aggression against the Palestinians and all these kind of things that we hear of, and yet they supply new armament and ammunition for Israel. What message are you giving us? We are so confused by what you are saying. I mean, you are, especially the United States, you are doing humanitarian aid dropping from the air. They want to build a port and they are working on it right now so that boats can come and give humanitarian aid, while you could simply ask Israel to open its borders or to respect the Egyptian border and to let the trucks enter.
Well, Your Excellency, well, then, because we're running out of time, so what is Egypt's role within the mediating effort, the mediating negotiations, the mediation talks, Egypt along with Qatar, with the US? How effective are these talks?
We're proposing, my dear friend. We are proposing what we can do and what we can implement and what we can ask the Palestinians to do. But what does it mean to propose if you don't have someone who is listening? And that's the situation. What is the difference of the current proposal by Egypt about the exchange of prisoners and this, and what happened 2 or 3 months ago? Isn't it the same deal, more or less, with few details around the corner? So the idea was always there. I mean, we always presented what we are presenting. We met with all the leaders, as you mentioned it a few minutes ago. We met with all the people concerned, with all the head of states concerned. We are receiving. Cairo have become the Mecca of all international leaders who want to see what is the current situation, how can we help? And yet, nobody is really doing anything for the simple reason that they are waiting for Israel to accept any of these proposals. Then they will show up to say, we will help with that, as long as Israel will accept. The idea of Israel not accepting and forcing it by either boycotting Israel or not supplying any ammunition or any weapons, this is the real deal. This is the serious talk. Anything beside that, it's just, as I said from the beginning, whether you are wasting our time with talks and negotiations and initiatives that will not even be worth the ink they are written with, simply because, well, Israel did not accept it, so we cannot do anything. And mark my word, the whole Western world in general, of course there are a few exceptions, but the whole Western world in general accept the total destruction of Hamas as an international organization, as an organization that is accused of being a terrorist organization. But what about the other Palestinian movements of resistance? They have the right to do this because according to the international law, any country who is under occupation has the right to do that. I don't know if you have seen the interview of the ex-head of the Shin Bet, the Israeli Shin Bet, which is the national security Israeli, who said, I will do exactly like Palestinian if I was under these circumstances. Even the Israelis themselves understand that this is the right thing to do, but the international community is not yet there. That's the real problem.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, as His Excellency mentioned, there are real problems and main challenges for the coming foreseeable future, and hopefully, like Egypt, did neutralize and maneuver around the challenges that were very present over the past 10 years, be it on our different borders, the western and southern ones. Maybe as well, Egypt will be able to neutralize and maneuver and find a way out of the current crisis taking place in Gaza. Unfortunately, that's all the time we have for this edition of the Daily Debate. But before we go, I'd like to thank His Excellency Ambassador Medhat al-Miligy, the former Assistant Foreign Minister. Mr. Ambassador, always a pleasure having you with us.
Thank you for having me, and Happy Eid to all, and we hope that we will tell the Palestinians very soon, Happy Eid to you, and for the other regional conflicts that we are surrounded with, like the Sudanese one, like the Libyan one, I wish them all the best, and may Allah bring peace to their countries as we have peace in our country.
Yes, may He do so. Ladies and gentlemen, that's all the time we have for this edition of the Daily Debate. I'm Henny Saif. Thank you for joining us.